As if they don't have too much on their plate. The Kings of Combat Sports Podcast, John and Wade. They'll talk about the things they did that day. They'll analyze the work of Vince and Triple H. Rewind-A-SmackDown. 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 Rewind-A-SmackDown.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special edition of Rewind-A-SmackDown, a special free edition of Rewind-A-SmackDown. So first of all, hello to all of you guys listening right now on the free feed, on our podcast feeds, and also live at youtube.com/post wrestling. Rewind-A-SmackDown is the Friday night review show that I usually do with John Pollock, covering SmackDown and also AEW Rampage exclusively for Cafe patrons. But tonight, John and John Cena will actually be covering Impact's Sacrifice event on the Post Wrestling Cafe. So if you're a member, you can check out that show. That should be up there sometime early Saturday morning, I should say. But in John Pollock's place, the always excellent Kate from Montreal. How you doing, Kate?
Doing well. Good to see you. Thanks for having me on.
How, are you feeling the road to WrestleMania? We're almost at our destination. You know, it's the last sort of a few miles here. This is the last, service stop, I would say. Do you need to, get out, stretch your feet type of thing? How are you feeling?
I definitely feel like I've been on a long drive for a while. Maybe that's just this evening. I think that there certainly the build has been very efficient, quite focused, and I salute them for that. And I think that the big show is going to get a very good reaction next week.
Well, I mean, of course, we are talking about WrestleMania on this particular show, but really WrestleMania week is a lot more than that. And, last year already felt like, a real recovery, but this year even more so. Like when looking at some of these schedules, which are available at postwrestling.com/mania. How many shows are you expecting to watch next week, Kate?
Okay, well, I'm going to watch as much of the GCW collective as I can. There are a number of other indie shows that I'm interested in checking out. I'm definitely going to be watching ROH. I fully expect that by the end of this week, I'm going to just want to take a break from wrestling, except that I remember last year what happened was that by the end of it, I was quite energized and I was quite excited. My interest was rejuvenated, and I was into a lot of the promotions and the performers that I saw. So I'll get back to you at the end of the week and let you know how it goes, because my God, there's a lot of wrestling this week, but it's fun. It's like a big carnival every year now, and I'm very glad that other promotions are able to take advantage of this opportunity to showcase what they can do with a kind of captive audience who are there to see WrestleMania. I think it's a great week for wrestling fans.
Absolutely. Yeah. Wrestling just happens to be maybe top of mind for a lot of people, lapsed fans or people that aren't fans. And certainly people who would consider themselves diehard fans like, you and I. But it's not just WWE, it's not just AEW, but really a number of promotions that could really take advantage of some of this hype and the accessibility that really kind of comes with, online streaming these days. And of course, you mentioned the collective, those shows. I'm probably going to be checking out. I'm probably going to be cherry picking. Let's be honest, because there's so much of it. But this year, with the whole Fight Plus thing that they're a part of, it makes it a lot easier to be able to go into every single show and maybe pick out the best matches that people are buzzing about and talking about. So, by the end of it, I'm certainly looking forward to it. So we'll be doing a whole lot of coverage next week. Hopefully, we'll be getting to hear from other members of the post wrestling community and our network as well, and a little bit more on WrestleMania week coverage a little bit later. But first, we have only one show to get to tonight. No Rampage, because that's taking place on Saturday, of course. But we certainly will make up for that with a big news pack. Kate, are you ready to get into some of the top stories of the day?
Let's do this.
All right, so the first thing, and I have a feeling this might be a big chunk of the news portion that we might be talking about. CM Punk, Mr. Phil Brooks, yet again a big part of the news cycle this past week. CM Punk made some headlines over the past 24 hours through a now deleted Instagram story that was responding to a Dave Meltzer post on the Figure 4 message board about Punk's feud with Jon Moxley leading up to All Out 2022. Now, first of all, perhaps important that we show the post from Dave Meltzer on the message board. And Meltzer says, do you know why they didn't advertise Punk versus Moxley longer and why it had a short build? Because Punk agreed to it. Then AEW got a legal letter saying he wasn't down with it and wasn't doing it, and they didn't know if he'd come until Tony put his foot down. There are a lot of nice things I could say about him, and you can absolutely argue his position on Moxley was correct, but you can't argue he willingly did what he was asked in that scenario. And to this, CM Punk, in his now deleted Instagram story, you're going to have a bit of a tough time reading here, but I'll read it out for you. Sigh. I was not cleared to come back to wrestle yet. The plan was to wrestle at the pay-per-view. I sat and listened to Moxley's Rocky 3 idea. I explained how I'd never seen a Rocky movie. I thought the idea sucked, but if the boss wanted to do it, whatever. He said he wouldn't lose to me. I'd never experienced someone refusing to lose to me. I just laughed. I asked Tony if this was what he wanted. He said yes, he's the boss, so I said okay, but I'd need to be cleared first. They kept saying it could just be a squash, and I did need to be cleared. I scoffed at that. My health is more important. Dave Meltzer is a liar. Jericho is a liar and a stooge. There were plans, but plans change, but I'll never put a company above my health ever again. And to this, Chris Jericho has responded with his own IG story of his own Matt Hardy delete GIF. So the biggest question I would say coming out of this, I have for you, Kate. Have you seen a Rocky movie?
I have, and I've seen a few of them. Not a huge fan. I think the original is good. Rocky 3, by that time I'm kind of cold on it. At least it wasn't Rocky 4. I mean, it could have been worse, which one he wanted to emulate. But I get the reference. I'm not, I guess, look, if Punk hasn't seen a Rocky movie, then I hope that someone explained to him it's not a difficult story to grasp.
I have a feeling he knew exactly what a Rocky 3 was, or at least he does now, certainly. But your thoughts on this entire thing? Of course, for people who don't remember, the build to All Out consisted of CM Punk losing to Jon Moxley in about 3 minutes on an edition Dynamite prior. And that set up, of course, the comeback match that we had where Punk won the championship. But any opinions at all about how any of this has come out and whether or not it impacts your opinion about Punk's future in AEW?
For those who are just listening on the audio feed, I'm really rolling my eyes right now. I'm so done with this story. I desperately just want everyone concerned to shut up. I think that Punk raises a very good point. If true, the idea that he was pressured to perform when he was not medically cleared is a bad thing. Here's the issue. Punk has done a lot to discredit himself with his past complaints about his work at AEW, the story that was sort of circulating that he had resisted this urge to to go partying, that he was trying to sort of tone down the so-called party culture that existed at AEW in a promotion where a large number of the performers are known to be non-drinkers and non-users of recreational drugs. There are a number of things he did like that where it just seems that there was an unforced error. And I think that unfortunately he's raising a very serious issue, but he's already put his own credibility into question. And of course, what happened when he brought this up, about 3,000 people started posting the clip of him on Dynamite that week, hopping around on one foot to show that he was just fine. That does not mean that he was cleared, and it does not mean that he wasn't pressured, but he's very bad with optics. Now, this whole thing that I guess it's never been confirmed that it's Jericho, but I think we're all pretty certain that it's Jericho, and a lot of the sort of counter stories to Punk's narrative have come in a tone that looks almost similar. Like you can almost hear them in Chris Jericho's voice. He needs to stop. If let us let's sort of say if, as he's alleged, he is the person behind these errors, he needs to stop. He's making himself look bad. He's making his company look bad. And maybe it does come from a place of wanting to stand up for the company he works for, but it's just gotten so dumb at this point. And I already just hated this whole sort of meltdown at All Out, and everything that happened there was just embarrassing for all concerned. And at this point, I cringe every time I see that one of these things is trending on Twitter, every time I see that there's another story that's come out involving it. It's like these people lack any sense of self-awareness of how idiotic they look. And so I understand with what Meltzer's doing that he feels an obligation to sort of share these bits of gossip really that come his way, and it's one of the reasons that people tune into his forum. But for God's sake, don't feed the troll anymore. These people have shown themselves to be incapable of adult discourse. The only person I think who has come out of any of this looking at all good is actually Britt Baker, who did a very good interview where she addressed what had happened without trying to point fingers, and about how sad it made her for the promotion, because she's really happy there and she believes in what they're doing. And that is literally the only time I've seen someone behave like an adult in this situation. I think that the smarter people have declined to comment, and that the level of discourse you're getting on this subject is so weak. And someone, I want to say, needs to be the bigger man, but it feels like the men in this situation aren't doing so well. So guys, just toughen up. You've had your fight. You're never going to be able to litigate this in the court of public opinion. People have already made up their minds, and nothing that you say is doing any good. So please just stop.
It certainly felt like there was maybe a bit of a cooling off period that allowed maybe the audience at least to entertain the idea of Punk perhaps coming back at some point in the near future. Like certainly I feel like that thought has been stronger maybe prior to this week than it has been since the entire thing happened. This certainly certainly takes that away, I would say. I don't have such an issue with maybe CM Punk, like, and even to defend Dave, like Dave was, I don't personally know the context in which he responded to the person on his message board about this. Dave did also earlier this week comment on Punk talking about the Steve Kern Coco Beware brawl, and I'm sure this was maybe brought up because of that entire thing. Anyway, it's Dave's message board. Like, he should be able to say whatever he wants. But because Dave's stature, whatever he says is going to be published out there, and it's going to turn bigger. And you know what? Like, if Punk had read this on his message board, he probably wouldn't have been too happy either. So Punk is right to go out there on his own social media to say something about news that he believes is not right. What I don't necessarily think is a smart move is to specifically name people and to add in lines such as, he didn't want a job to me. I had never run into that before. Like, there are certainly more diplomatic ways of, I think, putting it all out there. I also feel like even if he's sure that Chris Jericho is the person leaking the news, is there concrete proof? Maybe he has it. Maybe he actually does. Maybe he has reason to put it. But on the surface, that's speculation. And do you want a guy who's already in this much hot water engaging in speculation for a potential fellow roster member that he might be a part of a roster he might be a part of again?
I think it's pretty clear he doesn't want to be a part of it again. And yes, to agree with you, obviously Dave is free to say whatever he wants on his forum, and it's one of the reasons that people go there. I guess at some point, though, when you have a group of people where no one is willing to just let it go and just be the person who takes the high road, you have to wonder if clearly everything that's happening is doing more damage to AEW, and really more damage, I think, to the broader industry than it is. There's no good coming of this. And I noticed someone in the chat room was also kind of was mentioning Dax Harwood getting involved in this and sort of injecting his own opinions, which is true. I don't like to think of a couple of people who are still employees, who are still drawing a paycheck from this company, who seem to be actively trying to bring it down. But it's hard to read what they're doing as anything other than that, because it does seem that the stories keep resurfacing when something goes well. And if they have issues with the company, I totally understand why they want to leave, why they want to get out. And when they're gone, I fully expect they'll be able to talk about all of the indignities that they suffered. I don't really like. I find this very immature, and this kind of like unwillingness to just let something go. And this is on both sides. I don't mean to target one side over the other, because clearly no one is just, there's this desperation not to let the other side get the last word. That, like I said, it's embarrassing at this point, and I find it. I'm embarrassed for them, but they should be embarrassed for themselves. I think that, again, if you, with this Instagram story, I was talking about how Punk undercuts himself a lot. He basically goes through, and he seems to confirm every single thing that Dave Meltzer said in his post, and then says he's a liar. I don't know how to interpret that. It's weird. And then to say that Moxley was unwilling to job to him. Well, he lost to you the next week at the pay-per-view. So was the idea that the story would be enhanced by Punk winning twice? How did that serve anything? Or that he just did not want to do this short match at all? I think it was a very divisive thing. And for my part, I actually thought it worked because it introduced just this sliver of doubt that Punk could lose at All Out. But it without that, it looked very much like a coronation. If he really didn't want to, and if he felt that he was at medical risk by doing this short match beforehand, then yeah, he was absolutely, and he should push back against that kind of thing. Everyone should. It seems weird. It's like, okay, he was not cleared for that one. He was cleared to do a much longer match a week later. Moxley wouldn't job to him. He did lose. It's sort of, and again, I'm not trying to say that he's wrong about some central points. It's just that he kills his own credibility because of the way that he approaches things.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're Tony Khan, and I imagine Tony is still very much wanting to entertain the idea of being able to have everybody reunite, having CM Punk on his TV show and as a character that he could promote again. But how do you respond to something like this? A post like this points the finger at you and your company for wanting to put a guy out there who's not cleared. Even if it's in a squash. I mean, it makes your company look pretty bad in a way that's not too dissimilar from that press conference. What do you think? What would you do if you're Tony Khan at this point? Do you just continue to let this thing cool down, or do you actively take a stand at some point?
I think that he's at a disadvantage because the people around him aren't letting it cool down. I think that he can talk to the people who are taking his side, maybe Chris Jericho, maybe others, and he can tell them to cool it. But he has no control, clearly has never had any control over what Punk is doing or saying. And so he may just have to keep taking these bullets. I think that there may be something, there may be an advantage to saying that he was not pressuring Punk to deny that accusation outright, and with the caveat that if Punk had felt pressured to perform, then that was a terrible mistake on his part, and is certainly nothing that he would want to repeat. However, like I said, it's just that this whole thing has been such a garbage fire that it seems it seems like even to give it to give it enough oxygen to keep going by responding to it is asking for problems. And I think, to Tony's credit, there is maybe there are legal reasons, maybe not. I think he has, to some extent, tried to remain at a bit of a distance and remain neutral. Unfortunately, the way this story is unfolding, it's very salacious. It's people want to know all the dirty details, and therefore Tony's come in for a lot of criticism for doing what may be just taking the high road and not commenting on it. And I think that people are they're so eager for gossip. They want to know the
Yeah.
tea. And unfortunately,
If I was Tony, I don't know if I would comment on this particular situation, just because, like you said,
Mhm.
Kate, why get dragged in to this dumpster fire? At some point, maybe it is expected that he would have to comment on CM Punk, but maybe not this week. Worry about Supercard. Get your shows out there and just
Mhm.
answer and change people's opinions about AEW as a whole by just continuing to give them good wrestling. What did he
and
do
I
that? And
and I
he's
think that
been doing
he's
that.
done that in
Yeah.
the last several months. Probably more than he gets credit for. But yeah, it's such a mess. And it I think what bothers me the most is that it makes it look like having a much more tyrannical boss, someone who simply will not tolerate any kind of dissent, is the only way in which a company can function.
Hmm. Moving on, speaking of AEW and AEW Dynamite and good wrestling, AEW Dynamite hits its 4-week high rating on TBS this week with the March 22nd edition of the show from Missouri, averaging 954,000 viewers and a .33 in the 18 to 49 demo, according to WrestleNomics and Show Buzz Daily. Of course, this was the show headlined by the dream match between Kenny Omega and El Hijo del Vikingo. Quarter-hour patterns were very unique with this show's prime demo viewership, peaking for the final half hour, which is about as clear of an indication of the interest in the Omega Vikingo matches you can get. The show's highest numbers since February 22nd, when it went opposed against NBA competition. This week, Dynamite did air head-to-head against the Golden State Warriors versus Dallas Mavericks game, with Vanderpump Rules airing against the second hour. Dynamite ranked 4th among cable originals, behind 2 NBA games and the aforementioned Vanderpump Rules. So, Kate, your thoughts on, first of all, the rating, and also your thoughts on the match itself?
The match was just absolutely brilliant. I am, as I have said many times on this show, I'm a flippy shit girl. I love Vikingo. I think that he's an exceptional talent. And as much as I'd like to see him regularly on TV, I think there is an incredible value to him as just a special performer that you break out every so often. I love that he is now included on Supercard, and we're going to get to see him versus Commander, who have been the sort of special attractions on AEW in recent weeks. I think that match is going to be loads of fun. But it's
It's a
just
match made. Sorry to cut you off, but it's a match made that I think says a lot, perhaps, about amending offenses between AAA and
Mhm,
AEW. To give a
mhm.
big match like this to Tony Khan, and I think if Conan or whoever is helping facilitate something like this, I think it's really smart for AAA to use a North American big promotion like this to promote 2 of their biggest guys. To
Mhm.
me, it only helps. Please continue.
Yep. I absolutely love the match. Kenny Omega is just operating on a level that only he and Brian Danielson seem to occupy. The matches that they get time after time with extremely different types of opponents are remarkable. And so far, yeah, Omega Osprey remains my match of the year to date, but Omega Vikingo would be close. All the more remarkable because it was a TV match. And I think that the viewership patterns, not just the overall increase in viewership, which has to do with a lot of things such as, reduced competition from the past couple of weeks, but the the viewing patterns, the quarter hours that that Brandon Thurston published, you can clearly see that there was a definite payoff to the strategy of simply announcing this as a dream match and letting the internet go crazy with largely bad faith debate over whether or not this was a dream match or whether it was just this nobody who was coming in and Tony Khan was out of his mind. I don't love to see that sort of that kind of promotion. It grates on my nerves having to see the fallout from it.
So you
but
believe Tony intentionally promoted this as a dream match, knowing that there'd be a lot of debate and fervor about
I
whether or
think
not it
that
was
Tony
accurate?
is as terminally online as I am, and he is very aware of what people say and how people react to announcements. And I think that he is very aware of how people react to things that he says at this point. So yeah, he could not possibly have been under the impression that this would simply be accepted. He knew that it would be by a certain portion of the audience. He knew that audience was going to scramble to circulate gifs of sorry. We're gonna have to
Okay. Free world.
agree to
It's all
disagree
right.
on that one. He knew that there were going to be video clips circulated of Vikingo that would likely pique interest, but that simply the level of discussion was going to make this a match that people wanted to check out. And it was trending on Twitter for days.
Mhm.
That's so, they did an announcement on Rampage, and they featured it on their YouTube shows. So there was this understated build, but this was something that was driven by the engine of volunteers on the internet, basically.
Mm-hmm. Moving on from AEW, let's talk about Impact, which of course has its Sacrifice show that's happening right now. Again, a reminder that the post show will be available in the POST Wrestling Café with Johns Pollock and Cino coming out later tonight. But earlier this week, it was announced that Josh Alexander will have to vacate the Impact Championship due to injury. Josh Alexander has been forced to vacate the Impact World Heavyweight Championship and will be out of action after revealing he suffered a torn triceps. The Impact performer appeared on Busted Open Radio on Sirius XM to reveal the injury, which will require surgery. The injury ends Alexander's run as the longest reigning Impact World Champion of all time at 335 days. Alexander was replaced by Steve Maclin on tonight's Sacrifice card, where he was set to participate in a 6-man tag. He will be unable to participate in matches during WrestleMania week, and a new title match has been scheduled for Impact's Rebellion pay-per-view next month. Steve Maclin will now be taking on Kushida for the vacated Impact Championship in Toronto. This comes also after news that Mickie James, Knockouts champion Mickie James, would be unable to compete at Sacrifice as well due to injury. It was explained on Sacrifice tonight that Mickie James is off of next week's Multiverse show, and Rebellion on April 16th is to be determined. So if Mickie could not recover and wrestle by Rebellion on April the 16th, she will vacate. But if she can wrestle at Rebellion, she will face Jordan Grace and the winner of tonight's Multiverse women's match. So unfortunate injury news, hitting Impact for both of their world champions right now. Any thoughts on either of those, Kate?
Those are just devastating losses, because obviously your title matches are your crown jewels in any pay-per-view. And I think both Josh Alexander and Mickie James have done a very good job of repping their divisions. Alexander, I get the feeling that Steve Maclin is probably was going to be the next in line, but I don't know if he's at that level quite yet. Now I think they pretty much have to pull the trigger on him, and look, he's extremely good. I find that I think that they did so much work to build up Josh Alexander, so that when he finally got that win and then lost the title immediately and then won it back against Moose, there was a good emotional story, and he's been so strong in Impact for so long. Mickie James has this story going where every match is basically title versus career, or I guess title and career. And that has created a lot of interest from within about the women's division, and Impact already books their women's division very well. It's so sad for them, and this is it's a promotion that has a lot going on, but it's your two biggest titles, and it puts a lot of pressure on the rest of the roster. They have all my sympathy. It does remind me of what was happening with both AEW and New Japan going into Forbidden Door last year, which was just it was like someone had pissed off a very vengeful god, and I hope Impact's able to recover, and I hope that they don't suffer any more injuries.
I hope it's the type of injury, for Josh Alexander that isn't going to have too much of an impact on his future going forward. And triceps, I feel like should be something he should be able to fully recover from, because it's the type of thing that I think it's the type of injury that could just serve as like a great basis of a story. Somebody who already had Impact's longest reign at 335 days, and that was not taken from him by anybody beating him. He's undefeated as the champion. And I think that a comeback story like that could potentially be big enough that it might attract people that aren't even necessarily watching at the moment. Just to add to this, it was later confirmed on the show that the four-way to determine the Jordan Grace opponent, and potentially Mickie James if she's healthy enough to compete at Rebellion, the four-way will be taking place between Masha Slamovich, Diana Perazzo, Giselle Shaw, and Miyu Yamashita. That will be taking place at Multiverse United. Ronda Rousey confirmed that she suffered an arm injury last month. The WWE performer revealed on Instagram that after thousands of dislocations throughout her career, she has sustained a fracture. In an Instagram post, Ronda said, after 2.5 decades of combat sports training, the smallest misstep could result in surgery. Well, after thousands of dislocations, I thought not tapping out to arm bars and tearing ligaments was cool in my teens. My elbow finally fractured simply by slapping the mat in Rockford, Illinois, right before WrestleMania. That Rockford, Illinois match was at a WWE live event on February the 26th. So we saw Ronda Rousey tonight. She was added to the women's four-way showcase match, four-way tag team show, whatever the name is, women's fatal four-way tag team showcase at WrestleMania. So she came out, I believe, with like some sort of wrapping around her elbow. It looks like, she'll be hopefully, good enough for WrestleMania for them to announce this, but at least telling us, the cause of the injury earlier this year. Mercedes Moné is set to defend the IWGP Women's title. In a video released by New Japan Pro Wrestling on Thursday, IWGP Women's Champion Mercedes Moné accepted challenges from Stardom's AZM and Hazuki, with the match being made official for April 8th at New Japan Pro Wrestling's Sakura Genesis. This will be Mercedes' first defense of the championship after winning it from Kairi Sane on February the 18th. This will be her first match in Japan outside of the WWE. The winner will go on to face Miyu Iwatani at Stardom's April 23rd event. Sakura Genesis is headlined by an IWGP Championship match between Kazuchika Okada and New Japan Cup winner Sanada. Does this have your attention? Do you like the match as a follow-up to the Kairi Sane match? What are your thoughts?
I do like it. I am not as familiar with Stardom as I am with other promotions, and I keep meaning to change that and get caught up on it. I'm not 100% sure why they went to the three-way, except that possibly I think Mercedes is going to retain, and I know that Azumi is kind of on a hot streak now, so maybe they want to avoid pinning her. But I fully expect Mercedes to retain. I think that she's been a boon for them. And I also don't think that they want to have two women hold this title and then lose it fairly quickly, because Kairi, I think she had one or two defenses in short order, but then lost it to Mercedes after just a couple of months. I won't say that I'm hugely excited for Okada versus Sonata. I mean, we've seen it before, but I think it was the right decision not to immediately rush David Finlay into a title match. I think that he is still gaining momentum. I'm kind of curious. I don't think it's going to happen, but there's just a tiny little bit of me that thinks that maybe with the new faction forming, they might go with Sonata. And it's 99.9% this isn't happening, but just this tiny little morsel of doubt crept into mind because of the way that they've changed things up with Sonata and the Five Guys.
And because of the way Gato's booked in the past, when a guy changes gimmicks, perhaps, starts a new faction to put a lot of steam onto that person, he might do something kind of drastic, like, put the world championship on him. So I think it's a match that has my curiosity for that reason. So that'll be Sakura Genesis. Mercedes Moné now added to that card. Let us know if you guys will be watching and if your interest in New Japan in general has picked up over these in 2023.
Mine definitely has. I think that
likewise.
they're doing a lot better than they have been in the last couple of years.
Trinity Fatu, Naomi, Mercedes' former tag team partner, Trinity Fatu, has revealed in an Instagram comment that she is no longer in WWE. When asked by a fan on a recent post, "Girl, are you even still in WWE?" Fatu responded, "No, friend, FRIEN apostrophe." So take this for what you will. I mean, it's Instagram comments are hardly maybe legally binding, but they are sources of news, as we are discovering in today's news pack that I am putting together. So Fatu was also discovered to have filed a trademark with the USPTO for the name Trinity Star for merchandising purposes. If this is true, where could you see her ending up?
I'm curious because I don't know if the obvious would be AEW. I don't know if she's the best fit for AEW, though, just because I think at this point there's a bit of a resistance to bringing on WWE people or people who may identify most closely with WWE, just because there seem to have been a few of them who have almost treated AEW as if it's a secondary promotion and as if it's a place that you go when you maybe want to go back to WWE, like it's an interim step. I think that she would flourish in, say, an Impact. I don't know if Impact can afford her. I could actually see her doing some stuff in Japan. I don't know how. I don't even know how much she's still interested in being a wrestler, or if there are other things that she wants to pursue. I think that she was generally kind of underutilized in WWE, and that her potential was higher than they allowed her to demonstrate. I look forward to seeing her somewhere. We'll see where that is.
Yeah, like she's one that I kind of feel like fits really well in the WWE, and I mean, I feel like she would do well almost anywhere. But I think I personally feel the best place for her might be the WWE. I think so much more. First of all, story potential with her husband being on the roster. I really do feel like AEW is still unproven in their ability to take like a hot act or somebody who could be a hot act from the WWE and turning them into a bigger star in AEW. But interesting to see if she'll have maybe other opportunities even outside of professional wrestling. So Trinity Star might be the name that we'll be looking out for. All right, so we've had a pretty long news pack. Let's move on ahead with some mention, at least, of our WrestleMania bonus coverage. As I had mentioned, everybody, if you sign up to the POST Wrestling Cafe tonight, you will get John Pollock and John Cena's Impact Sacrifice post-show. Your membership will also get you access to all of our WrestleMania week bonus coverage beginning on Monday. This includes bonus podcasts available Monday to Friday, all of next week. Our first one coming out on Monday with special guest Speedball Mike Bailey. And just confirmed also on Monday's show, Nick Hausman of the newly formed House of Wrestling website, getting his take on the latest with CM Punk, will also be joining us. So that is postwrestlingcafe.com, also video.postwrestling.com. And if you're an Apple Podcast exclusive user, well, first, I still recommend signing up on the Patreon because you can use our RSS feed in Apple Podcasts. But if you don't like to go through all that hassle, just simply sign up through Apple Podcasts itself. It costs a little bit more because they take a bit more off of the each membership, but it gives you that level of convenience. So hope you guys join us next week. Are you ready to get into SmackDown, Kate?
I sure am.
All right, SmackDown tonight, coming to us from Las Vegas. We start things off with Cody making a rare appearance on SmackDown. In fact, we learned that this is Cody's first match on SmackDown in 7 years. This match against Ludwig Kaiser was apparently made on one of WWE's web shows over the weekend. We get some big Cody chants throughout. Paul Heyman immediately comes out. He's there to watch. Kaiser chop blocks Cody to stop the Cody cutter, and he starts controlling the match. Solo Sikoa now comes out and joins Paul Heyman as they walk towards the ring, leading to further distraction and more attacks on the knee from Ludwig Kaiser, leading to a second commercial. Giovanni Vinci throws his jacket into the ring to distract the referee, leading to a double team with Kaiser. Cody finally hits the Cody cutter. He stares at Solo and then stares at Paul Heyman before hitting the crossroads, getting the victory. Your thoughts on this first match, Kate?
You might hear me say this a few times. It was a little long for what it was. It was fine. Cody did one spot that I really liked, which was that he lifted Kaiser up for vertical suplex, and he did it he did it like almost to demonstrate the strength in the pecs, because that's what you need to do that lift. And so it kind of showed off like, yes, I am back at 100%. There were a couple of little raggedy moments in the match, nothing too serious, and that's maybe me nitpicking. When I say I thought it was good, but it was a bit long, the end of the match was never in any doubt, and I don't think it was a spectacular enough match. It didn't have like the big spots or the emotional tension that it needed for the length that it was. The action was very much what was going on outside the ring, and you were just waiting, because obviously the point of this was to get to whatever spoken segment was coming at the end. So yeah, the match itself was fine. The one thing I will say is I like the idea of Ludwig Kaiser as an opponent, and that you're already introducing a tension between Cody and Imperium, because if I am Triple H, coming out of Mania, I think they'll probably go to Cody. I think Cody's winning. B, I think when they go to Saudi Arabia, that's going to be Cody versus Logan Paul. But for SummerSlam, I think the right move is to get to Gunther, because I think that is going to be a very strong match. And it'll also be a match of people who are kind of new and fresh, and one that we haven't seen before. So introducing that element of tension already is a very good idea.
Yeah, I think, that's a great pickup from you, because Kaiser being chosen probably wasn't for, no reason. And Gunther coming off of this reign feels hot enough to certainly challenge for a championship, and being the type of heel that he is, going up against a babyface the way Cody is, that feels like a very classic old school babyface going up against a foreign giant, for maybe lack of a better term at this point.
And a baby face with a great big American flag tattooed on his neck. It's easy to do that kind of us versus them dynamic.
Afterwards, Heyman and Solo enter the ring. Heyman decides to announce the winner himself and says there's a giant pothole in Cody's road to WrestleMania when he will go one-on-one against Solo Sikoa this coming Monday on Raw. He says if he survives, Roman will be here on SmackDown on Friday, to which the crowd mightily boos, knowing that Roman wasn't going to be here. And he will see Cody one more time face-to-face next week on Friday. Cody is mad that Heyman has been moving goalposts again, and also for interrupting the crowd while they were singing his song. Cody says he won't say no to the Solo challenge even a week out from the biggest night of his family's life. Cody says again that Solo is not ready, as the crowd picks up and starts chanting "You're not ready" at Solo. He also says Roman will find out later that he's not ready either. So very interesting tactic, giving a lot of build here for this setup match the week of WrestleMania for Cody. I mean, I'm used to my WrestleMania main event builds being like, guys and tag team matches and asking whether or not they could get along, nothing, contract signings. They're giving us a big match here in Cody versus Solo Sikoa, two guys who haven't been pinned. Cody's case, I guess not including his prior run, but since he had come back, has never been pinned. What are your thoughts on this type of matchmaking?
If I were them, I'd have Sikoa win. I think it introduces
Really?
doubt into I think it introduces some doubt into a story that largely that seems predetermined. I think that people believe fully that Cody is going to beat Roman, if for no other reason, like that. Um, who else is going to do it? They don't have anyone else nearly hot enough to take Roman on, and certainly no one who so fully embodies the kind of image and spirit that WWE want to convey. Cody in WWE, he is so in his element, and it becomes obvious how much more appropriate he is to that environment. It's kind of hard to believe that he was that he did this indie run, that he was involved in starting AEW, because it just, looking back on it, as much as he was a huge star there, it just feels like such a bad fit. And he is obviously just able to be the character that he wants to be, which obviously includes a lot of who he is naturally, I think. Uh, but yeah, I would just to tease, and it can be through shenanigans, it can be like via, or have Cody win through a disqualification. Uh, I don't know if that's how you want to give Sikoa his first loss, but I don't know. I would go with that. I think that just introducing a little bit of doubt would actually spice up what's already a very hot program.
It's interesting because I don't know if they had Cody lose, even if it was through shenanigans, I don't know if it would necessarily introduce an element of doubt for me. I know you had commented earlier about maybe that having the effect on you for the CM Punk Moxley feud. For me, I tend to think it does the opposite. Like, if I know a guy's going to lose on Monday, I know for sure he's going to win on Sunday. But I'm more interested in the storytelling, if they can tell an effective story. Can they do Rocky 3, with Cody Rhodes? So,
I think Cody would be a lot more into it than CM Punk.
Oh, it's his favorite Rocky movie, he said. Yeah. But how did they get out of this? I think if you're going to have an undefeated streak for Solo Sikoa, I think now is as good a time as any. The week before WrestleMania, the challenger going to WrestleMania, to give that value to that guy. And this might be different from any other build, because Roman Reigns has been champion for what, 2 years? Something like this now.
Yeah.
He's already seen as unbeatable. And so you want to give as much to your challenger as possible.
I think that if they had wanted to introduce a little more of an element of doubt, they really should have gone with pushing how close Roman is to 1,000 days as champion, because he is quite close. And I think that if you had set it up that realistically, well, maybe they will go with Roman getting to 1,000 days, that's very plausible. Not to take away from the job they've done building the story, which obviously is working extremely well for their fans. They haven't really been able to convince me that the end result is anything other than Cody holding up the belt at the end of the night.
I think that's a great point, because that's the biggest argument I've seen people, use for why Roman Reigns should beat Cody at WrestleMania, so he could hit 1,000 days. This perfectly round number. It sounds kind of silly, but no, like, if you're somebody like a Roman Reigns with the ego of a Roman Reigns, I think for that to be his motivation heading into WrestleMania to win this championship, it would introduce an element of doubt just for an audience thinking in terms of optics for the WWE. It would also, I think, introduce great motivation for the character of Roman Reigns, for Paul Heyman, for wanting to this to last, an unprecedented 4 figures. So,
well, and when the WWE has made a big deal of someone carrying a belt for a record number of days, they've generally allowed them to break that record.
Yeah.
So, if you think of in terms of longest reigns, but when they make a big deal out of a number that's very close to being attained, they tend to go with that as the option. So,
missed
that's what I would
opportunity.
have done in their position. But look, it's very hard to fault the build to this match when you listen to the audience reactions they're getting.
We have our first match announcement for Saturday's WrestleMania, and that is John Cena versus Austin Theory. In fact, that match will be kicking off WrestleMania weekend. It'll be the first match on Saturday. And this kind of tells me that we probably won't get any matches on a kickoff or anything like that this year, because they're making a big deal out of this kicking off WrestleMania weekend. So I don't anticipate Siri versus Tina to be on the preview show, but the first match on the WrestleMania card looks like it. Do you like that idea?
It's been a while since they've had matches on the pre-show, if I'm remembering. It's like they seem to abandon that. I think that it's made the pre-shows weaker, but obviously they're going in their own direction and they have the format pretty much nailed down now. In terms of this match, I'm not terribly excited by it, and that's just me. I think that people are invested in seeing John Cena. Obviously, he's still a big draw when you look at the television numbers that they got when he was on. It doesn't do anything for me personally. I find Theory to be incredibly bland, and as much as they have sort of removed the stench of those promos with Vince from him, they haven't done much to convince me that he's anything special, either as a character or in the ring. So this one leaves me pretty cold. So for looking at having that one on first, I think it will get a big star on right off the bat. Me personally, I don't know, I might be making dinner during that one.
The value of the match is to have John Cena on the card, and as a way to perhaps get people to sit in front of their screens at 8 o'clock on Saturday to ensure that they might stick around for the entire weekend. Maybe a good idea, as any. Charlotte Flair comes out next, says her 14 title reigns weren't built on fear, insecurities, or nepotism. She says despite those three things being used against her by all of her opponents, she talks about fear. She says it's ignorance. This business wasn't built on it. It was built on respect. And the only thing she fears is not reaching her potential. She talks about her insecurities. At this point, the crowd starts whatting her promo. And Charlotte responds, "Are you whatting me? This is important, so listen." And of course, the what chants get louder. And then she goes on to talk about her insecurities. She says she built this house on every brick that all of you, pointing at the audience, have thrown at me. She talks about nepotism. She says she loves her dad and she'll never apologize for continuing the greatest legacy in sports entertainment. And then she ends the promo by quoting her dad, saying, "Whether or not you like it, you better learn to love it because diamonds are forever." And so is Charlotte Flair. A very noticeable heel leaning from Charlotte in this promo. The what chants, the way she addressed them, Charlotte is a veteran, and there's no part of me that believes she would do that unless she was wanting to make those chants louder to elicit a negative reaction. I think the verbiage of saying all of you as she's pointing to the audience, talking about her insecurities, spoke very loud about maybe the direction that they're going. And you pair this with the very babyface presentation of Rhea Ripley on Monday with her match against Damage Control. Have they changed direction for this program?
I actually think this is a very strong promo from Charlotte, undercut by the fact that the build to this has been a god-awful mess. They did kind of make Rhea seem like a babyface against Damage Control. However, they're still associating her with Dominik Mysterio, who is one of the most despised heels in the entire company right now. So,
well, we haven't seen them together. We haven't seen them together Monday or Friday.
They were together last week on SmackDown. Wade Barrett was referring to them as the Romeo and Juliet of
we haven't
WWE, whatever the hell that means. Please go read the play because it makes no sense.
It's very clear that there might have been a change some point this week. And I would say it's only noticeable because of this promo, because of Rhea's presentation on Monday, and because you did not see Rhea with Dominik tonight.
Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, the commentators drove home that he was still with Rhea and that Rhea was responsible for drawing him away from his family, the evil woman who corrupts the otherwise good son. So if they really were changing direction,
I mean, it's a pivot. It's a pivot. You can't change so much. You can't change, you can't take Rhea out of the Judgment Day just because fans are more likely to cheer Rhea than Charlotte. Like she's still very much the same character, but I just simply wonder if they are leaning towards, the audience's want, it seems, of wanting to cheer Rhea and booing Charlotte for this match.
I think maybe, but in a way they've balled up this build so badly that it doesn't have much of an impact either way. And I think that there is a strong possibility that Rhea and Charlotte have an excellent match, and that Rhea comes out at the end of it on top, and that's all that people are going to remember. This happened a couple of years ago when they did Sasha versus Bianca, the build for which was just terrible. But most people who are listening to this don't remember that it was a terrible build. They remember that it was just a wonderful match on WrestleMania. This one, the only thing that's sort of at the back of my mind why I'm more worried about this one is it has been a long ass time since Charlotte had a really good match. In fact, I would say that the last standout match she had was at the 2020 WrestleMania against Rhea Ripley. Maybe that's an argument in favor of it being more likely that this one will be really good, but she is in desperate need of a top shelf match, and I hope that we get that, but everything here has just been so muddled and so kind of slapdash about who is the babyface and who is the heel. I essentially see it at this point as a heel versus heel match where they're just kind of acknowledging that the crowd's going to go with Rhea. I don't think either woman has looked particularly strong. I thought what Charlotte said tonight was actually pretty effective, but it was very clear that the crowd just wasn't having it. And they were, when they started doing the what chant, that's a sure sign that they are just that they have tuned out what the person is saying. There is no better sign in wrestling that people don't care about what you're saying than when they start doing what chants. So
Yeah.
we shall see how it comes out. If it's a great match, no one will care about the build. If it's a mediocre match, then people will look at this as something that might have been doomed by bad creative.
Should it main event Saturday?
No. I think that putting them on after what is going to be a blazing hot tag match, unless I don't think you want to have both the tag match and the world title match on the same night, because that's almost loading too much on the second night. And I don't think that you want to have the Charlotte versus Rhea match go on after that tag match, because the audience is going to be exhausted, because that is going to be the hot match. Maybe if they put both the tag and the world title match on the second night, but again, then I ask what's going to catch my attention on the first night, because there isn't really a marquee match. They have two super hot matches going in, and those are the two that you go with as your main events.
If there's an argument for putting this in the main event, I think the only one you can really come up with is simply the optics of having a women's match in the main event, which you kind of had last year, but not really, because of the Austin, Kevin Owens impromptu match. So they, do you see any backlash if they don't have a women's match close out the first night?
Maybe some, but because they did it twice before. But I think that it's putting them at a disadvantage if you put them on after this is super hot match. And you're kind of
Owens and the Usos could be earlier in the show.
Yeah, but again, I go back to what happened when you had Kofi versus Daniel Bryan kind of in the middle of a show.
Yeah.
And yes, this will be a shorter one, but the audience is going to come down in energy afterwards. So I think you're doing a disservice to Charlotte and Rhea if you force them to go on after that. And as I said, if you put both of the really hot matches on the second night, I'm not really sure how invested I'm going to be in the first night. Does any other match come close to the heat that those two matches are getting? No. So yes, you could do it, but it just, to me, it would smack of tokenism.
We are going to take calls from our patrons and video.postwrestling.com members, so look for the link in the appropriate places where we usually send those a little bit later on after we have completed our review. But up next, we've got LA Knight taking on Rey Mysterio in a match here, and Aaliyah and Angie Mysterio are both ringside. Dominik comes out to watch. He's ringside and he distracts Rey and leads to Knight taking control. Knight catches the 619 as Rey tries it again. This time, Dominik trips Rey. Knight then schoolboys off of this distraction and picks up the win. LA Knight pins Rey Mysterio, and LA Knight immediately got out of there because despite getting the win, which I'm sure he will gloat about till the end of time, he was not the focus here because afterwards, Dominik got into the ring. He continued to shove and provoke Rey into. Well, first of all, any thoughts on the match itself? Because I don't think we'll be talking about the match much after.
Stop me if you've heard this one before. It was long for what it was. I think that clearly, once again, it was a setup for what was going to come afterwards. Little confused as to why Rey, this veteran, fell for the getting distracted by music playing, but that wasn't what ended the match. It went on a bit. I think that LA Knight right now is essentially playing kind of the same role as like a QT Marshall or even like a Tony Nese and Josh Woods, where he is the kind of loudmouth who you want to boo, and that is happening. He's solid in ring, not exciting. His strength is clearly in his promos. He's getting a little bit more chance to show that. And you do see the audience responding to him. But this was kind of a throwaway match that went through 2 segments.
Really just there to set up, the aftermath, and also, I mean, maybe something for LA Knight to use, going forward as the guy who pinned Hall of Famer Rey Mysterio. But after the match, Dominik gets into the ring. He continues to shove and provoke his dad into giving him a match for WrestleMania, and Rey just leaves. Dom then asks Mom ringside how it feels to be married to a pathetic loser who can't even stand up to his own son. Dom then heads over to Angie and Aaliyah and tells Mom that she knows she married a deadbeat because every night her husband wasn't there, she still supported him. And that makes Mom a deadbeat mom. This gets his sister Aaliyah to step up to Dom's face, to which Dom says Aaliyah is too stupid to understand. Angie then grabs the mic from Dominik and she's about to speak when Dom snatches the mic and says, "Mom, shut up." At this point, Rey comes back. Rey lunges at Dom, and Rey Mysterio finally punches his son in the face as this place explodes for a bit of a public discipline here. Rey grabs the mic, says, "You pushed me to hit you. I did not want to. You don't disrespect your mother like that. That's my wife." And Rey grants Dominik his WrestleMania match. And it's official. Rey Mysterio versus Dominik. How do you think that they arrived finally at the match announcement?
I'm going to have to separate my reaction here from the reaction of everyone else, including clearly the crowd. I've even gone beyond hating this story. It's just such an eye roller for me. I have no interest in it whatsoever. I find that the acting has been so terrible, and it's just bad soap opera content to me. I do not think that Dominik is strong enough in ring to justify the position that he has, but clearly, I'm in the minority here. The crowd loved this, and they were fully aware of how much the crowd loved this because they replayed it 7 goddamn times. And I don't understand why Dom was slinking away like the proverbial scalded dog at the news that he was getting what he's wanted for weeks. I'm a little confused about the use of the term deadbeat, because I understand that it can just mean bad parenting, but it almost always refers to someone who doesn't pay what they owe in terms of child support, and the storyline has been that offering financial support was the huge portion of what Rey did as a parent. which I actually find makes him less sympathetic to me. This whole idea that I was a good, maybe I wasn't always there for my children, but I paid for them, and particularly that I paid for them to have this luxury lifestyle. Like, well, no, I think that Dom has a good point, except that he comes off as a massive twat, and gets the reaction. He comes off as this sort of, I guess, well, and he is supposed to come off as this spoiled, irrational brat who, again, has been corrupted by the horrible and evil Rhea Ripley. As, again, they drove home on commentary during this segment. This is absolutely not for me. I find it, again, I used to hate it, and at this point, it rolls off me because, okay, look, everyone else is into it. I heard that pop tonight. Clearly, they love it. Dominik is one of the most hated heels in the entire company. I have no interest whatsoever in seeing this match. I wish that it would get off my TV, but I acknowledge that I'm in the minority. And for the way that the crowd reacted, I cannot in any way fault the build that they've done.
So you're looking forward to this less than, I guess, Rhea versus Charlotte?
Yes. I am looking forward to this less than anything other than Brock versus Omos.
Austin Theory versus John Cena, you're looking forward to more than this?
That's just bland. Yeah, because I think that Cena versus, well, we'll see what Cena is like in the ring. I mean, he was the only match he's had in the last year. He was in the ring for 2 minutes, but
I guess it's strictly talking about the build, it sounds like there's something particular about this that's just has irked you, and maybe that's the bad acting or something else.
Also, I just don't have any sympathy for either of the protagonists in this case. Like, neither of them has made a compelling case to me why I should think that they have been doing the right thing. I don't know.
Ray's been doing the right thing. He's refusing. He's got a son who, clearly has. Yes, you could definitely argue about maybe the trope of being corrupted by I don't know, the evil gothy girlfriend, I suppose. But beyond that, I think it's been a well told story. I think it's been a very.
I think for other people, it clearly, yeah. And look, for what it has been, I cannot argue that people are getting into it. It is not for me. I don't have any sympathy for either of the characters. And obviously, I'm not supposed to have sympathy for Dom. But again, I don't like hearing. I've heard this sort of this justification for bad parenting that, well, maybe I wasn't there, but I paid for it. And I think that that's a shitty model of parenting myself. So there's that. But it just, again, I don't actually, there's no point at which I believe that either one of them has meant what they're saying. It has seemed extraordinarily phony to me. And
is that because of the acting or the motivation?
Because of the acting.
Okay. I mean, I could buy that, but I also understand that I'm watching professional wrestling, and so I'm not necessarily expecting,
But I think I'm watching professional wrestling on a show that has given this Sami Zayn arc, which has been, I find his motivations completely credible. And yes, I'm aware that it's a produced show, that it's largely scripted, but he has just seemed so much stronger to me than the Ray versus Dominik. Again, it's me. I'm fully aware that I'm in the minority, but it's a minority I'm happy being in.
Yeah, no, I give you credit because you definitely are a minority. And RIP Kate's notifications, because I'm sure she's going to get a lot of Dominik defenders in the morning telling her exactly how much they love this. But this is why we're here.
They're allowed.
We want people with differing opinions so that we can get to the bottom of why something is good and why something might not be good. We want to hear everything. I, for one, have loved this entire thing.
Oh, I know. I listen to you guys every week.
I love the way that they got there. I think, man, Angie in particular, I think has done a great job in every single instance that we've seen her, dating back to, those holiday vignettes. The choreography with which she used to attempt to slap, but then not slap Rhea, or I mean, she did maybe slap Rhea, I forget. And then tonight, with even like the mic handling back and forth, like her facial expressions, I think are always on point as well. I think they did such a great job of just building this crowd to finally want Rey Mysterio to punch his son. And as maybe that sounds silly, but in professional wrestling, I thought they did a great job of building to this moment. So we'll see which night they put this on, and we're in but as like a mid card to like upper mid card type of featured event, I'm pretty hot for it. And be nice, everybody. Be nice to Kate, especially. Not everybody can do this job and speak their truth about an unpopular opinion. We got Natty and Shotzi versus Xia Li and Lacey Evans. This is a qualifier for the 4-way tag team match. Lacey delivers the woman's right to Xia Li by accident. Shotzi delivers a big suicide dive. We get a heart attack to Shotzi, and then Natty's sharpshooter makes Xia Li tap. So Shotzi and Natalya advance, and Shotzi and Natalya are both in the ring celebrating, I guess, or staring down Raquel and Liv. And out comes Ronda and Shayna Baszler. Ronda, again, with some wrappings on her arm and not a full cast. Shayna and Ronda are about to beat up the competition, but Ronda says that they've given Vegas too much in their careers and says not tonight. They let them know that they've been added to the match at WrestleMania, as Ronda points to the sign. So I guess they didn't need to qualify. And that's fine. She's injured. She's Ronda Rousey. I don't need that much explanation. But yeah, Ronda seems to be confirmed for the match. And your thoughts on this match and I guess Ronda Rousey's role in it? I mean, she's somebody who not that long ago would be considered a featured act, and this year she's coming in with an injury. There are maybe other circumstances, but what do you think about her placement on this card?
I am shocked at how cold she's gotten in the year she's been back, and to be kind of slotted into a match for the opportunity to challenge for belts that have really never been well established or well thought of on the main roster is it's just shocking to me that this is where we've gotten with her. However, again, based on crowd reactions, that's where she belongs. She feels like a middle of the mid card act, and I suspect that that's where this is going to fall.
Yeah. She hasn't been on TV. She's been off, and I guess putting her in a multi-man tag match will be a way of getting her name on the show while also maybe limiting what she has to do. It just hasn't been her year, and I would say this role has not been her role. The crowd wants to boo her, but man, what she's giving off is just really bad. Like she like the time off has not made her a better professional wrestling heel. She plays somebody who is very seems like they're very aware that they're trying to be a very generic bad guy. And I'm sure they've tried to coach her because she's such a big project of theirs, but it just hasn't sunken in. And at this point, I don't exactly know what the answer is. Maybe it's giving her a manager, maybe it's taking that role off of her and just letting her do the wrestling portion.
Are we sure that she's sticking around? Because I remember when she came back, Dave Meltzer said that they have her for 2 WrestleManias. I think it may be in question if she sticks around after this. I don't know this for sure. I just remember him saying that because I think, again, the idea was to go with her and Charlotte at the first one and build to her and Becky at the second one. And obviously, for various reasons, that did not happen. But I don't know that she's going to be around that much longer. And I can't imagine with her history that she's very happy with the position that she's in. I wouldn't be if I was brought in to feel like a big star and this is where they've slotted me. I don't know.
Interesting question. All right, up next we got the Sheamus Drew Gunther contract signing. Sheamus reminds us why he's mad at Drew for stealing a goal that he's been working towards for 15 years. Drew tells him to shut up. He's sick of Sheamus whining. They should have been laughing about their fight last week, but now Sheamus is too sensitive and he can't separate what's personal from what's business. The facts are, Drew has beaten Sheamus and he knows he could beat Gunther, and history has shown that Sheamus cannot. So Drew using a bit of MMA math to predict his victory over Gunther there. Gunther comes out, wants Adam Pearce to justify this three-way, but he signs the contract anyway and says whatever he has to do will be justified. At this point, Butch starts attacking Gunther like a dog, dare I say it. And Gunther immediately threatens Pearce to make the match. So on SmackDown, Gunther versus Butch, Walter versus Pete Dunne here. Gunther gets wrist control and just unloads on these chops. Gunther continues to beat Butch up in front of Sheamus. We go to a commercial. They're all on the floor. And at this point, Butch is going to dive onto Gunther, but accidentally jumps onto McIntyre instead. Drew starts to confront Butch on the apron, leading to Sheamus to stop Drew, leading to Drew headbutting Sheamus. Sheamus comes back with a knee to Drew. Back in the ring, Gunther delivers a lariat and the Last Symphony to Butch for the victory. I thought the match was just okay. You know, maybe because in my mind, I still remember Pete Dunne versus Walter, and this is just diminished so much more in stature. But its role really was there to just showcase the three-way with the distractions and whatnot. Any thoughts?
I thought this match was a little long. Again, for something that was basically a sideshow to the spoken segment, I thought it was fine. Like you, I had in mind the title match in NXT UK between Pete Dunne and Walter. This was nowhere near that level and really speaks to how Butch has been, the difference between the Pete Dunne character and the Butch character. I noticed a lot of people in the audience were chanting Bruiserweight, but clearly the more interesting portion of this was the spoken portion before, particularly between Drew and Sheamus. As I said, I think that Gunther should be really a target for Cody. You can move him off this program. He's done extremely well in it. He's made that title feel a lot more relevant. I think that probably go with Sheamus on this one. Maybe he still clearly has the favor of the crowd. I like the idea of alternating heel and babyface, and he is over as a babyface, as are his compatriots at this point. The crowd still likes him very much. They presented this as a kind of workhorse title. He is more than up to that role, and I think that there are some matchups that we haven't seen from him that could be very interesting. He and Drew, though, have very good chemistry. I think that you can get out of this because of the three-way stipulation. You can get out of it without pinning Gunther. And yeah, I would go with Sheamus in their position.
Yeah. I don't dislike that either. I don't think you could go. I do expect the title change certainly. But I don't think you can go wrong with either Sheamus or Drew as sort of like your new IC champion. Maybe for Sheamus, to finally fulfill that role or that goal, that 15-year goal at WrestleMania might create a really big coronation for him. And then do you go to Drew versus Sheamus for a rematch?
Maybe. I don't know. I suspect Drew is the one. If they go with Sheamus, Drew is the one taking the pin. Maybe you could go back to it. They have a long history. We've seen the match a lot before, but I've never thought it was a bad match. It's still not a pairing that I'm sick of. I liked how Drew was he has been a babyface obviously for a while now, but he was kind of playing a dickhead in this segment. He wasn't going full heel, but for Sheamus, who I thought came off as very sincere, he was being kind of nasty, and I think that is good. You can keep him in a holding pattern where he can be a bit of a tweener depending on who he's facing.
I like that a lot. A potentially, slightly healed Drew McIntyre, I think would be very fresh. So we get the Street Profits in the back. They're talking about their 4-way tag team showcase match. They got to come up with a shorter name for these things. Braun and Ricochet confront them. Braun wants all their smoke, and that's it. Just to remind us that they exist. Next Friday, we are getting our Andre the Giant Battle Royal, and a lot of people are going to be in this, as shown in the graphic. They include Legado del Fantasma, Maximum Male Models, Gallows and Anderson, Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin, Los Lotharios, in case you're wondering where they were, Hit Row, Dexter Lumis, the Brawling Brutes, excluding Sheamus, Dolph Ziggler, Mustafa Ali, Rick Boogs, Elias, Johnny Gargano will be on the Andre Battle Royal. Xavier Woods, LA Knight, Bobby Lashley is a part of the Andre Battle Royal. Karrion Kross, Baron Corbin, Bronson Reed, and Riddick Moss. Is there a clear winner amongst these that you would suggest?
This is going to be interesting because it's the first year that Triple H has managed this Battle Royal. Traditionally, the result of the Battle Royal has meant nothing. It hasn't conferred any great presence on further television to the winner. I guess we're going to see if Triple H has a different idea about this. I suspect that if he didn't, he would have just scrapped the entire thing. Looking at the people involved, I mean, I think Lashley has to be a favorite because he is someone who had a clear program for WrestleMania that has then been whipped out from under him for reasons that remain shrouded in darkness and fog. I guess so. Yeah, I think that he is several notches above any of the other names in that match.
Yeah, Lashley seems like an obvious choice, but I wouldn't rule out. Let me see here.
Well, someone in the chat room suggesting Bronson Reed, also a possibility. I don't know. Again, I think that they can wait to pull the trigger on him, but he's someone who they clearly want to give some profile to after Mania.
All right, we also have Sheamus and Drew taking on Imperium. So can Sheamus and Drew get along? We'll see. The main event segment of the night is the KO show featuring Sami Zayn. Owens gives this big introduction to Sami Zayn, who comes out and receives a huge pop. And Owens, once the music comes off, asks Sami if that introduction was okay, if it was to Sami's liking. And Sami acts surprised. He never wanted this big introduction. And Kevin says, well, I mean, in the back, we were talking and, this was all your idea, Sami. And, instead of us walking out together, you suggested each of us coming out on our own. The crowd could listen to both of our music. And what you really wanted, Sami, was, your own pop. His pop was the exact terminology. And, and Sami just kind of admitted to it, I guess, or at least didn't really fight him too much on it. What do you think this was? Was this just like some funny, playing back and forth, or should we look at him any deeper into this?
It was a little weird because it reminded me just slightly of the Owens Jericho Festival of Friendship thing. And for a moment, I was like, is he going to kick Sami in the head? Or is Sami going to kick him in the head? But no, I think it was more just a tease to let us know that things aren't necessarily completely buried and forgotten between them, and to introduce a little bit of an element of doubt about whether they can coexist easily compared to the Usos, who very clearly have just gotten back on the same page. Well, I say very clearly, we shall see.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that it was super effective, but I guess it did its job of raising some doubt. So it was fine. And yeah, I guess followed by the presentation of the shirt, which
I certainly think there's like, so they made up last week, and then this week to suddenly like be best friends again might be a little bit abrupt. So maybe this was just kind of, introduced to remind us that they could split up at any moment, and you can almost guarantee that eventually at some point in this relationship, one of them will turn on the other. So maybe just kind of done to just remind us that that's their nature. Sami says that this year's WrestleMania feels different, and Kevin Owens agrees. And to celebrate this, he has a gift to give Sami to replace his honorary Uso shirt. It's his KO Mania shirt for this year. But that's only the back, because on the front, in honor of the guy that has taken WWE by storm, he has made a shirt that says WrestleZania. So I'm imagining you can buy this right now at shop.www.com or something. A shirt with both sides, KO Mania and WrestleZania. These two are going to make a lot of money off of these shirts, I'm sure. So Zayn and Owens hug. They're ambushed by the Usos. Super kicks all around. 1D to Zayn as Owens chases them away with a chair. And that's how the show ends. So, I wouldn't say not that much of a segment, for this Kevin Owens Usos, really bloodline related content, I would say here compared to previous weeks. But at this point, all the heavy lifting has kind of been done. And maybe this week is just more about spreading the word about the matches that already said.
Yeah, it was very much to me repetitive of what's gone before, but it is reminding you that yes, it's coming up. It's sort of keeping the uh, it's keeping the story front of mind, the story clearly as the second hottest, arguably the hottest story that they have going into Mania. Uh, it justifies its position as the main event of the night. Uh, like I don't have a problem with it. It was well done. It wasn't one of the stronger segments content wise. It didn't really contain any surprises. There was that interesting little hint of tension, but uh ultimately it was fine. It
What'd you
was
think
it
of
was fine.
What'd you think of tonight's SmackDown?
If someone were to ask me what bits they should watch, I would say the yes, perhaps in the face of my own objections, I would say the Ray Dominic segment. Everything else felt like it was just sort of underlining stuff that's already been set up, and none of the in ring was very special. So yeah, that was obviously the only major plot development there. And look, there's not much more they have to do, so I can't criticize them, but I found this one pretty skippable.
I thought the Charlotte Flair promo was interesting as well, just because for me of what it might represent in a potential change in direction in their heel and babyface roles. But beyond that, yeah, everything is set at this point for WrestleMania. And to my knowledge, are there any more matches that have yet to be made? We need one more
I'm just
team
going
in the
through,
four-way.
yeah, but I'm just going through the number of matches in my head, and it feels light to me, but I don't know what else you put in there. I think it's lacking a really good kind of grudge match sort of thing, but all of the stories that would go along with that are already taken.
So I'm going to go through the card, or at least what we know of the matches right now. And in fact, I'm actually going to share my screen here just so that everybody watching can join along with me. So already announced for night one are Austin Theory versus John Cena. And it says here Logan Paul versus Seth Rollins. Has that actually been official to your knowledge, Kate?
Official for
For
night one?
one, yeah.
I didn't hear that. I guess there's your grudge match. I had forgotten about that one.
Okay, well, whatever. That's also happening. Sorry, I've lost my place. This is very embarrassing to do on live. Anyway, the internet. Okay, so Seth Rollins, of course, we got Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes. There we go. Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes for the Undisputed Universal Heavyweight Championship. We also have Charlotte Flair versus Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair versus Asuka, Brock Lesnar versus Omos, Gunther versus Drew versus Sheamus, Trish and Lita and Becky versus Damage Control, Edge versus Finn Balor in a Hell in a Cell, Liv Morgan and Raquel versus Natalya and Shotzi versus Ronda and Shayna, and one more team to be determined. Braun and Ricochet versus the Street Profits versus Alpha Academy versus the Viking Raiders, the Usos versus Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, and Rey Mysterio versus Dominik Mysterio. So that's 13 matches spread across 2 nights.
Yeah.
Seems like it could
so
be
yeah, that's that's average. I was forgetting a couple that are in there, and of course, I mean, when we're talking about grudge matches, the big one is Rey versus Dominik, and I guess Edge versus Balor is in there too. So you do have some significant non-title matches. So yeah, that is definitely enough. That's about as much as I want to handle over 2 nights. Now, a couple of them, like Omos versus Brock, is going to be super short.
Maybe.
But, yeah.
Maybe they'll go 20 minutes.
Yeah. Oh God, no.
We'll see. All right, so those are some of our thoughts on SmackDown, as well as WrestleMania, as well as some of the top stories of the day. But now we open it up to all of our patrons and video.postwrestling.com members. You should be able to find the link in the various places where you found this link, and we will go to your calls and feedback from forum.postwrestling.com right about now. Let's start things off here with Brian. Brian, welcome to the show.
Hey, Wai and Kate. Spitting hot fire tonight, but SmackDown just kind of breezed by for me, I guess, because of the lack of backstage segments. But I can understand why some of the matches kind of felt long, because not real focus around them. I mainly wanted to focus on 3 very cool, fun, positive things I've encountered recently within the realm of wrestling. First up, that Super Card of Honor card. I was hoping this would be coming together soon, and as of today, I think it has. Between the AAA Mega Championship match and the Reach for the Sky ladder match, it just looks like a terrific card coming up. So that's how I'll be spending my Friday next week.
Yeah,
And,
let me just kind of bring that up too, because now since you brought it up, we've got Claudio Castagnoli versus Eddie Kingston for the ROH World Championship, El Hijo del Vikingo versus Commander for the AAA Mega Championship, Wheeler Yuta versus Katsuyori Shibata for the ROH Pure Championship, Athena versus Yuka Sakazaki for the ROH Women's World Championship, Samoa Joe versus Mark Briscoe for the ROH World TV Championship. We got the Embassy taking on AR Fox, Blake Christian, and Metalik for the ROH six-man tag team championships, and also the Reach for the Sky ladder match for the vacant ROH tag team titles between the Lucha Brothers, Top Flight, the Kingdom, Aussie Open, and La Facción Ingobernable. So Rush and Dralistico. Yeah, it looks like a hell of a card. One of the best WrestleMania weekend.
Yeah, that's like Brian. That's the one that I'm probably looking forward to the most. And it's interesting. I find that those ROH, the recent ROH pay-per-views have over-delivered. In this case, they have some decent stories going into it. And in particular, I absolutely recommend from Ring of Honor this week, go watch the Claudio Eddie Kingston promo segment, because it's fantastic. Again, Kingston is so real, but the one who stood out to me was Claudio, who I thought just handled everything beautifully and came off as both a heel, but also heel with some really good points.
Yeah, they shared that on Twitter. It's fantastic between these two. And I'm sure they've had good matches in the past before. And the two other quick things I want to bring up. I don't know if either of you watched Jeopardy, but tonight's Jeopardy had a WWE category with is all video clues presented by Triple H, Rey Mysterio, Kofi Kingston, The Miz, and Alexa Bliss. Some of the contestants seemed intimidated by it, but they all answered the questions correctly. So
really,
yeah.
Do you remember any of them?
They're asking like identify Andre the Giant, identify what movie Batista played Drax in, but also like our responses were Lucha Libre, King of the Ring, and SmackDown, which would have been might have been troublesome for them. And then and then the third thing, this came out into the public last week, but the Apple TV Plus documentary series on the Monster Factory. Not sure if either of you heard of this, but it's a documentary series on this well-known wrestling school, and it's only 6 30-minute episodes, so it's very easy to binge, and it's really well made, just really well shot and produced, and the emotion of the subjects really comes out, and clearly has some money behind it because they license all this footage and music for it, but well worth watching.
Very cool. Thank you, Brian, for sharing some of your positives. You know, in the wrestling community, we very much needed it. So those are
There's
some
not
of Brian's,
enough of it.
Yeah, those are some of Brian's recommendations, and thank you for spreading the cheer, Brian.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
All right, let's go up next to Muggin. Muggin, welcome to the show.
So, guys, how are you?
Doing well.
Good.
Can you hear me?
Good, thank you.
Can you all hear me? All right, good. Anyway, I just want to pick up what Brian was saying about Kingston and Castagnoli. Yeah, that's going to be a good match. That's going to be a very good match. I mean, considering their history dating all the way back to Chikara, and they're supposed to have that final blow off before Claudio jumped the ship to WWE for several years, and now now with Ring of Honor back in operations, like now they get the chance to blow this feud off, and yeah, I'm pulling for Kingston in this one because I want to see him win the World Championship at the Super Card of Honor. And on paper, that card looks very good. I mean, Commander and Vikingo are working back-to-back nights, same on different shows. Possibly they're going to do the same match. On was it in WrestleCon? Was it WrestleCon they're facing each other?
So isn't that a three-way? Are you talking about the Mark Hitchcock match?
It's Commander and Vikingo 1-on-1 for the Mega Championship at
Yeah.
WrestleCon, and then they're going to face each other again at Super Card of Honor, back-to-back days.
I'm not sure. I'll have to look it up.
Okay, and my thoughts on SmackDown. It was a solid show. Obviously,
Uh-oh.
The high point. No offense, Kate. Please don't get mad. It was the
I'm
Ray
not.
Dominic.
I'm not. Look,
payout.
I get
Why?
it. Everyone else is into it, but
A lot of people agree with Kate actually in the chat room.
I mean,
voice of the voiceless.
granted, it took a little long to get there. Okay, and anyway, I mean, it took a long time to get there, but I'm glad they paid that off. It really goes to show you that this regime is really putting a heavy emphasis on patience, because they don't want to, because especially with how the previous regime did things, where they just forget stories altogether. I gotta commend their commitment to paying things off, and the ending segment with Owens and Zayn. I'm not gonna lie, I was giggling for the most part. And I hope they main event night one of WrestleMania, and not to mention the fact I do not want to I don't want to feel cheated, because with Zayn getting Zayn getting a shirt from Owens, just like how Roman Reigns gave him the honorary Usos shirt. I just don't want to feel like there's going to be another swerve involved, because I feel like WrestleMania this year could very well be the end of the bloodline as far as being on top of the world.
So just to clarify, the Vikingo versus Commander is taking place at Supercard of Honor, at the Mark Hitchcock Memorial Super Show. They're having a 3-way between the two of them and Taurus. So that's what's happening. So there will be some difference.
Okay. I just saw the graphic on Twitter that they were having 2 one-on-one matches on back-to-back days, and I'm looking forward to you and John's. Sorry.
Well, unless I missed it, so you could be right.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to you and John's interview with Speedball. That's gonna be very
Awesome.
Good.
Thank you, Muggin, and thank you always for calling in and giving us your thoughts. All right, let's go up next to Andy B. Andy B, welcome to the show.
Hi guys, hope you're well. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Hey, what's up?
So, guys, you were mentioning that you didn't think there was enough drama in the build to the Cody Roman Reigns thing. And as someone who's completely bought into this story, I'm petrified that Cody is going to be taking the L at WrestleMania. And this seed sort of got planted in my head by Meltzer a few weeks ago. So he pointed out that the original plan was for Reigns to retain against The Rock or Austin or whoever else they could get to do the Mania match. And Cody's just been plugged in there instead. So that was his reasoning for why he thinks Reigns is going to win and hold the title until the summer. So yeah, that's kind of petrified me. So I'm going to be pretty nervous going into that match at Mania. I imagine this is how real sports fans must feel going into like a Super Bowl or a Champions League final or whatever.
Yeah, that's it. Who needs this, accounting firm to lock up the results? I mean, results, can be debated enough as it is. But so any other thoughts there, Andy?
Guys, I just wanted to say, I just saw a few comments disagreeing with Kate in the chat room. I just wanted to say this is a safe space. Let's not cyberbully each other. Everyone's entitled to their own opinions. I really enjoyed the show as always. Thanks so much for the content.
Thank you, Andy. Appreciate that reminder. Kate's very, very thick-skinned. Anybody who rants as much as she does, I'm sure, can more than handle it. But appreciate that. Let's go up next to Hansi. Hey, Hansi, what's up?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Mm-hmm.
Hey.
Yeah, what's going on? Good job as always, Kate. I was gonna say that first about the CM Punk stuff. I mean, listen, if this was 10 years ago, I probably would have been way more invested. But maybe because this is my personal opinion. I know everyone is going to cover it regardless, whatever. But I just find myself not really caring as much about, obviously it's going to be part of the Discord because you go on Reddit and you'll see 5 quotes a day from Dax's podcast, and it's hard to avoid it, whatever, right? So all I'm saying is that I don't think I've ever been less interested in wrestling drama that would have if I were 14 years old and this was happening during the Attitude Era at this level, I would have been all into it. But now I mean, listen, if they make money and they come back, that's cool. But I find myself no longer caring. It affected my enjoyment of the Omega, and even though I liked the match, I just thought one of the things that I have an issue with was that the match wasn't gonna be good, and I hate this notion that people think that like there's an average fan and like there's an internet fan when like most of the internet fans are watching AEW anyways, so people can look up who Vikingo is. Like that wasn't a big deal. My issue is like I wish AEW would do more. I guess it's easier for Impact to do it because they do 4 weeks of tapings, but I like how Impact brings in like Kushida, and you train your audience to show you that Kushida can win, and then you build to a bigger match with somebody else that you can lose. I just don't. I never like the style of bringing someone in just to lose and go. I know it'll suffice for a lot of people that it's a good match, but for me, I think I get over that because I can see a good match anywhere in any promotion in this era, if that makes sense.
It makes sense. Yeah, you want more setup for a big match.
But I'm not mad at the match. Like, I'm not saying the match was shit or anything like that. Like it was, people were into it. I was glad that people were actually into it. So it proved people wrong that people wouldn't be into it, right? But like that's not my issue about like, you know.
No, I'm in agreement. I was arguing that last week, you know. But I also, I guess, understand that this was a particular circumstance where it was tough to fit the Kingo into their schedule. Conan said as much, and Conan himself said he wishes that they could have built more into this, but this was just a bit of a last minute thing, I suppose. You can make the argument.
I think as a counterpoint to that, and I agree that I don't really want big names coming in just to lose, where it does seem like this foregone conclusion. One, there is a setup, although they didn't really push it as much as maybe they could have, which is that Kenny did not lose the AAA title, which they featured in the build up the video piece they did.
That was good,
and that him winning sets up a rematch for the title, which is the match that never happened. So I think it's in there. You could argue that it was too subtle, certainly. But the other thing is when you say I can see a good match on like in any promotion, I don't think you can see a match at that level in any promotion.
Oh, I mean, are you sure? I mean, okay. I mean, maybe not that level, but I mean, like if you look at a work rate match, you're telling me that there's never been an era where there's a shortage of good work rate matches that's like blowing the internet away. You know what I mean? But I get it. I will say this, that it felt like the first time in a long time in AEW, Kenny Omega felt like New Japan Kenny Omega, opposed to like goofy Kenny Omega, which I kind of detest. You know what I mean? Like it felt more in line with Omega versus Ospreay in that regard. And before I go, I'll just say this about. I'm actually, I was like kind of pissed that maybe they didn't do Sami Zayn and Owens in Montreal to reunite. But seeing, listen, I get it. Like we want the happy ending, so I guess like they had needed to wait till like maybe the last 2 weeks to get it going, because if that was like the best that Owens and Sami Zayn can do as good guys on the microphone, I can see. Because I mean, like if they did this a month ago where they got along. I don't think I would be able to tolerate their whole babyface shtick. And right now, it's like it's all cute right now because like we're all like high on them reuniting and all that. But I'm glad that it happened closer to the pay-per-view, because I get really, really tired of like overly babyface stuff. Even though like it kind of proves the internet are hypocrites, because we want happy endings, but when we get them, we kind of like just shit on it. So I'm just glad they didn't do it too soon, and it's actually the perfect length, whatever, because I'm sure when they have, if they win the tag titles, I'm looking forward to them feuding with other tag teams that will be fresher and have better, and hopefully they'll have prestige level of feuds, not just throwaway feuds, if that makes sense. And I'll leave you guys with that. Thanks for taking my call, man.
Thank you, Hansi, as always. Yeah,
I think that they sorry, go ahead.
No, please go ahead. Yep.
I think that they sacrificed the moment in Montreal in the interest of the story, and that is that I agree that long term is the better decision. It is too bad that the Montreal show, the ending did feel kind of flat, but again, it's a larger picture, and this would have been hard to draw out if you had them get back together at that moment.
Right. Having been in that crowd, I think there's still questions about whether or not they should have capitalized on Sami Zayn's momentum that particular night. Has that been lost? Like, will they ever have that particular moment to make Sami Zayn again? I think it's debatable, but I also think that Cody is the bigger play. I think Cody should be the bigger play. And I think this was the right decision. you know,
Yep.
and
And
being
yes,
able to.
Sammy is a little cooler than he was for sure, but he's cooled to get him to the point where they want him to be. I don't know that I ever saw, like, WWE has a very specific type of person they want carrying their belt. The way that and Roman has been a great example of that. Sami Zayn isn't that type of character, and Cody is.
Let's go finally here to Derek. I believe this is Derek from
Hello.
Novinga. Is that your last name?
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Hovinga, yes.
Hovinga. Apologies. How's it going, Derek?
Yeah. Oh, no worries. Good. Thank you. This is my first time calling, actually. I was home on a Friday, so I thought I'd call in because I've never called in. So
Much
I
appreciated.
want to say great show from yourself, Wai, and Kate. You're great as usual.
Thank you.
I wanted to talk a bit more about the Mysterio story because, what I really like about the Mysterio story right now is, the acting is bad. It's really just focused on, the comedy, the irony of Dom's character. And it kind of reminds me of, like, do you remember when we were younger, you used to, like, come home and watch TGIF and, like, you'd watch Family Matters and Step by Step? Kind of reminds me of that where, like,
We had Degrassi.
Degrassi, right? Yeah, I'm from Canada too, but we still had Step by Step and all that stuff. Where like one of the son needs to come to his senses about something, and he's really funny and whatever. Anyways, I'll admit, I agree with Kate. I think the novelty is starting to wear off, and I think honestly at this point, my feeling is that WrestleMania. I think that match is going to put an end to that character and. And also kind of, when you think about the Judgment Day as a whole, with Rhea, who's probably going to get the baby face reaction from the crowd, Edge and Finn Balor finally ending that feud, I think. What's next? I don't know what Damian Priest is doing, but where do you see the Judgment Day going after
Well,
this?
they've got the Puerto Rico show coming up, which you would imagine would be huge for him. I don't see them breaking up. I think they're a pretty hot act, and I mean, it'll be interesting to see like what happens with Rhea and Dom, especially if like Rhea does take on more of a babyface role. But something tells me like that just might be against Charlotte, and they could just still. These are really interesting questions. What about you, Kate? What do you see for Judgment Day?
Okay, first of all, thank you for making that point about shows. I didn't like those shows when I was younger either, so maybe this is just who I am. This is like a sort of unpleasant, like overly conservative, like broad who can't appreciate these sort of lighter things. Now, as far as the Judgment Day is concerned, I agree. I don't think there's much of a point in splitting up Balor and Priest because I don't think that either of them have a super strong case to make on their own as single stars right now. I do think that if you're going to put the belts on Zayn and Owens, that maybe that's a feud that you can go to afterwards because they do benefit. The heat that has gone towards Dom and Rhea has reflected on them. They have been feuding with a very popular legend in Edge. So I would keep them together as a tag team and maybe run them against Zayn and Owens.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And Wai, you brought up a good point too about, they're going to Puerto Rico. So, but then there might be that part where you got to split Damian off because he's got to get that babyface reaction. So, yeah, not sure, but it'd be interesting because I think Judgment Day is going to be one of the groups that are hot, but they're going to be in a weird space once WrestleMania is over, especially if Finn gets, destroyed in the demon character. So. We'll see. Interesting.
As long as he doesn't end up humping the floor again, I'm happy.
Oh, right. Yeah,
I think the demon has to win this time, don't you? Like, I mean, after Reigns, like I think demon needs to win. Come on.
Well, something's got to end for this. Something big's got to happen.
Put this one to bed, please.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Derek, for the call. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you. Take care.
Okay, we got some feedback from forum.postwrestling.com. All of our postwrestlingcafe.com members have the ability to post their thoughts after every Rewind a Raw, pretty much after all of our major professional wrestling show reviews. Let's first go here to Jermaine from Chicago, who says, it's always great to hear from Kate and Wai, two non-whack-ass Canadians. Appreciate that, Jermaine. SmackDown was enjoyable. I like the segments with Ray and Dom and Gunther the most, although I'm confused why Gunther would say, why would I agree to this match, and then proceed to sign a contract for that said match. I was a little bit perplexed by that one as well.
I was also perplexed as to why he's getting so angry. It's like, well, justify this. Like, well, you prevented the match from going to a proper ending last week. Ergo, there's no loser, there's no winner. You have to face both of them. It's actually one of the more easily justifiable decisions that Pierce has made.
Yes, very true. I thought, okay, I have a couple of questions for you two. I feel really bad for Lashley and Uncle Howdy being tied to Bray Wyatt. He was fired and no one touched him. WWE gave him another chance and he didn't improve in the ring one bit, didn't work on his body. Maybe pro wrestling isn't for him. Maybe he would be better as a producer in the back. What do you guys think? I disagree. I really disagree. Like, especially like about those reasons. I mean, is he bad in the ring?
I think that if he could pay off the lore that he establishes, that it wouldn't matter that he's weak in the ring. Goldberg isn't particularly strong in the ring, but he can pay off, at least, maybe not as much anymore, but he could always pay off with this because of the sort of aura around him, the build to his matches. The problem is that with Wyatt, you have this huge investment that you have to make in the story, and they've never come close to paying this off. It's always fallen. And this is the danger with that kind of storyline, is that it can be super intriguing. But in the world of professional wrestling, outside of a horror movie, can you ever get the return on investment? And I don't know that you can. I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head where it's happened. And I think that your options are to either you have to just shorten the build and say that, okay, maybe it'll have some element to it that'll be kind of appealing, or you just have to go kind of comedic with it, because for a wrestling audience, that sort of darkness in the end doesn't sell.
Let's go up next to Manny from Pacoima, who wants to give us a bit of a recap of the entire week. The men's team Mexico versus Team USA in the Lucha World Cup was the match of the show. Penta once again showed why he's a star and deserves to be a single star, along with Phoenix as well. Hammerstone versus Fatu was insane. JD and Dragunov killed it. I'm looking forward to the North American title match at Stand and Deliver. Vikingo made us and all of Puebla proud. Can't wait to see him in Commander's match at Supercard of Honor. Aussie Open, Daniels and Seidel had a great match on ROH, and the promo between Claudio and Kingston really hyped up their title match. Lastly, what kind of father slaps his own son? This is not what our Aztec ancestors would want. Well, come on. What kind of a child?
It's clearly what the crowd wanted.
What kind of a child would talk to their mother like that? Come on. We got a Nas from NYC who says, just came to compliment the both of you on your amazing F1 specials, or podcast talking about stuff no one else talks about, just top quality stuff. All three of you are amazing. Definitely more F1 coverage, time permitting, of course, in the future. Thank you, Nas from NYC. Of course, he's referring to the podcast John and I did talking about Drive to Survive, as well as the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix with Racy JC, somebody who is a motorsports writer, incredibly knowledgeable, somebody we are blessed to be able to even have access to pick their brain about F1, and in particular what she had to say about sports washing and Formula One, I think is a particular interest to anybody who is a professional wrestling fan, and especially those of us struggling to stay WWE fans while they have this ongoing deal with Saudi Arabia. This is something that F1 fans have had to, deal with a long time as well. And I don't know how often we get to hear some of those conversations. So if you want to check that out, become a member of the POST Wrestling Café. But we've also uploaded that particular conversation about sports washing on youtube.com/post wrestling as well, completely for free if you just want to check that out. So thanks, JC.
And it's phenomenal. I highly recommend. I'm not an F1 fan, so it's not something that I follow. I still found the discussion absolutely fascinating.
Thank you for checking it out, Kate. We got Anthony from Melbourne, lastly, who says, great to see Dom and Ray To see the Dom and Ray match finally confirmed, I would have liked to see some minor tweaks to how they got there. Given how strong-willed Ray has been to refuse to hit Dom, I think Dom should have given his mom a little shove. Nothing crazy, just enough to set Ray over the edge. Dom just shouting "shut up" at his mom did not seem like enough to change Ray's mind after all the home invasions, etc.
I saw it as cumulative.
yeah. When you throw
Fair
in
enough.
throw in home invasions in the mix, I suppose it makes it seem a little crazy. But come on, yes, cumulative. And I mean, we know their stance on male on female violence. Okay, even the suggestion of it, much less son mother violence. I hate even saying it. Okay, come on, that would be too much. I also think Ray missed a great opportunity for the line, "I brought you into this world, and I'm going to have to take you out."
That might have been a little bit much, but...
maybe that's next week on the go home promo.
And that's what people want to see, right?
Maybe that's a Hall of Fame speech. He could use that. That's next week too, everybody. We didn't get a big stipulation to force Ray to agree to the match, but do you think there's still time? I don't think it needs it. I mean, first of all, I don't think this ends at WrestleMania. They put too much into this, too much to Kate's chagrin. I'm sure. I think they're going to keep this going, especially, you know, if they're doing a show, maybe Saudi, maybe Puerto Rico, you know, that it'll be something that they'll keep going for that.
I tend to agree with you, actually, if only because they have made this big star out of Dominik, and I don't know what you do with him afterwards.
Yeah. Clearly, like, this is the biggest thing for both of their careers, I would argue, because I don't think Ray has had much going on other than this storyline. So
no, but I think Ray is over enough just as a legend that crowds are going to applaud him anyway. I don't know that Dominik can maintain this level of heat against anyone except Ray.
We shall see. So he goes on to ask if we could see a mask match. If Ray loses his mask, would you think he needs to retire? And he still seems to have some gas in the tank. And if Ray wins, where does that leave Dom? I don't think Ray should entertain the idea of a mask match until he chooses to retire. I don't even think there's that much value in a Ray mask tease, because almost all of us know what he looks like. And if you don't, if you're somebody who's a new fan, I mean, a quick Google search, they'd have to really build up the symbolism of having a mask. And even if it's not so much about revealing what the person looks like inside, it's about maybe not having the identity anymore. Yeah, they could do it, but I also don't think Ray's retiring anytime soon. And that's it. That wraps things up here for always incredibly enjoyable, insightful, lovely edition of Rewind-A-SmackDown whenever I get to sit in this chair with Kate. As I had mentioned, the Impact Sacrifice post show is up right now, probably for all of you listening in the Post Wrestling Cafe with John Pollock and John Cito. Please join us next week for our WrestleMania coverage by becoming a member of the Post Wrestling Cafe or video.postwrestling.com. You get all the bonus shows. You get to support the website, and you get to access the entire archive of Rewind Away, every edition of Rewind-A-SmackDown that we've done, New Japan Pro Wrestling post shows, so all that stuff and more, postwrestlingcafe.com. Kate, thank you as always for joining me. Where can people find more of you?
You can find me on Twitter, as much of a cesspool as it can be. I am She Rants About Wrestling, at She Rants MTL. And wading through the waves there. We'll see how that goes.
And I'm sure there'd be plenty of people agreeing with you that can't wait to let you know that about that as well. So, or were you a fan of Step by Step? Let at She Rants from MTL know. So thank you guys very much. Tomorrow it's long and winding road time with WH Park. He will be talking about Vader versus Kenta Kobashi. So look for that in the free feed at night, 9 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday. It's the return of the Nubian Wrestling Advocates, as Andrew, Chris, and Nate will be previewing WrestleMania along with SP3 of True Heel Heat. So look for that here at postwrestling.com or youtube.com/postwrestling. I've said enough. Bye-bye.